What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 14, Thursday Night Football.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
Okay, in this video, I'm going to give you my top picks for the Thursday Night Football Showdown between the Las Vegas Raiders and the LA Rams. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, let's take a look at this Thursday Night Football Showdown between the Las Vegas Raiders and the LA Rams. So at the quarterback position, I like Derek Carr from the Las Vegas Raiders playing the LA Rams, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing quarterbacks. Derek Carr has averaged 17.1 fantasy points per game on the season. He gets an average of 1.4 rush attempts per game. Gonna be about 54% owned, projected at 16.8 fantasy points here in week 14. And Derek Carr is $10,200 DraftKings salary. Vegas thinks there's going to be 43.5 points scored in this game, with the Raiders favored by 6.5. So Derek Carr has scored 17, 23, and 23 fantasy points in the last 3 games. It's a pretty decent matchup here. I think that the Raiders are going to knock the socks off of the LA Rams tonight. So I like Derek Carr here versus the LA Rams. Okay, guys, so Matthew Stafford is out and John Wolford is questionable. So I'm not going to touch the Rams quarterbacks. Not sure who is going to get the start. Going to have to tune into that one. They added Baker Mayfield off of waivers, but it looks like Bryce Perkins would back up John Wolford if he's not able to go, and then Baker Mayfield would back up Wilkins. So the quarterback situation is a mess for the Rams. Although it is a good matchup here, the Raiders give up the second most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, and they have the third worst defense overall. But I'm not going to touch the quarterbacks from the Rams here tonight. Super high risk, high reward if you want to do so, but I'm going to stick with Derek Carr. Okay, let's take a look at the running back position. So the stud on the slate is Josh Jacobs from the Las Vegas Raiders. Now the Rams have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They've been pretty good versus opposing running backs, but Josh Jacobs has averaged 23.5 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 20.2 rush attempts per game and 4.2 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 74% of the snaps, going to be about 75% owned, projected at 18.9 fantasy points here tonight. He's $12,400 DraftKings salary. And Josh Jacobs has scored 25, 51, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 26, 33, and 24 rush attempts on top of 2, 7, and 4 pass targets. So monster volume, monster production. He should be good to go here tonight. So I like Josh Jacobs here versus the LA Rams.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Now if you want to save some salary at the running back position, take a look at Cam Akers from the LA Rams. And the Las Vegas Raiders have the third worst defense overall. They give up the sixth most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Cam Akers, he scored 19 fantasy points last game off of 17 rush attempts and 1 pass target. Only going to be about 18% owned, projected at 8.9 fantasy points here tonight. But I think he can score 12 fantasy points or more. He's 7,800 DraftKings salary. So I like Cam Akers here versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Now the other running back for the Rams that should get some touches here tonight is Kyren Williams. And he's only 5,400 DraftKings salary. Now, he scored 1, 9, and 5 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 3, 11, and 7 rush attempts on top of 1, 3, and 2 pass targets. But I do expect him to see some volume here tonight, maybe somewhere between 5 and 10 touches. And since he's only 5,400 DraftKings salary with a good matchup, he could be a decent play here tonight, especially if you need to save some salary. So I like Kyren Williams here versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. So the stud on the slate is Davante Adams from the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Rams are giving up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Davante Adams has averaged 24.1 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 11.3 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 95% of the snaps, going to be about 70% owned, projected at 20.8 fantasy points here tonight. He's 12,800 DraftKings salary, and Davante Adams has scored 41, 14, and 36 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 12, 11, and 13 pass targets. So monster volume, monster production, great matchup. So I like Davante Adams here versus the LA Rams. Okay, now coming down in salary here, the other wide receiver that I like for the Raiders is Mac Hollins. He's averaging 10.2 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 6.1 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 94% of the snaps, going to be about 25% owned, projected at 8.4 fantasy points here tonight. But I think he can score close to 11 or 12 fantasy points, and he's 7,400 DraftKings salary. Mac Hollins has scored 9, 16, and 11 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 9, 5, and 9 pass targets. Now, I wouldn't be surprised to see these Raiders wide receivers get a lot of targets here tonight. They could give Josh Jacobs a little bit of a rest here, and these wide receivers do have the better matchup. So I think the way I'm going to go is go with Derek Carr and then stack some of these Las Vegas Raiders wide receivers. So I like Mac Hollins here versus the LA Rams. Okay, coming down in salary even more here, you have Van Jefferson for the LA Rams. So the Raiders have the 3rd worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing wide receivers. Van Jefferson has averaged 6.1 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 3.8 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 93% of the snaps, going to be about 27% owned, projected at 9.7 fantasy points here tonight. He's 6,400 DraftKings salary, and Van Jefferson has scored 6, 12, and 7 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 4, 7, and 5 pass targets. So I like Van Jefferson here versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. Our NBA tools are awesome. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Now, I also like Ben Skowronek from the LA Rams, and Ben has scored 5.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 4.2 pass targets per game. Been on the field for 82% of the snaps, gonna be about 25% owned, projected at 7.3 fantasy points here tonight. I like this pick because he's only 4,800 DraftKings salary. He scored 5, 3, and 1 fantasy points in the last 3 games, off of 3, 4, and 4 pass targets. So he could get a handful of targets here, and this is going to be a slate where it's going to be hard to find quality players that are lower salary, so you can fit those Las Vegas Raiders studs into your lineup. So I like Ben Skowronek here versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, another low salary wide receiver you could consider for the LA Rams here tonight is Tutu Atwell. He's averaging 4.2 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 1.5 pass targets per game. And he's going to be about 15% owned, projected at 5 fantasy points here tonight. He's 4,400 DraftKings salary. He scored 9, 4, and 13 fantasy points in the last 3 games, off of 5, 2, and 1 pass target. And he did get 4 rush attempts last game as well. So I do think it's interesting. He got 9 touches last game, whereas Ben Skowronek only got 3 pass targets. So he out-touched Ben. So he's a little bit lower salary, lower ownership. So I think he's an interesting play as well. So I like Tutu Atwell if you're looking for a low salary play here versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Okay, moving on to the tight end position. I like Foster Moreau from the Raiders playing the Rams, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing tight ends. Foster Moreau has averaged 6.8 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 4.4 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 81% of the snaps, going to be about 24% owned, projected at 7.6 fantasy points here tonight. He's 6,600 DraftKings salary, and Foster Moreau has scored 4, 12, and 4 fantasy points in the last 3 games, off of 3, 7, and 3 pass targets. So I like Foster Moreau here versus the LA Rams. Now for the Rams, you have Tyler Higbee, and the Raiders have the 3rd worst defense overall, and they give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Tyler Higbee has averaged 7.9 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 6.5 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 85% of the snaps, going to be about 22% owned, projected at 8.9 fantasy points here tonight. He's 6,200 DraftKings salary. Tyler Higbee has scored 3 and 9 fantasy points in his last 2 games, off of 5 and 8 pass targets. And I think he is one of my favorite Rams pass catchers here tonight. So I like Tyler Higbee here versus the Las Vegas Raiders.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NFL slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.